happening around us and where our country goes. No rumors in the shadows, no stories left untold. Just facts on the table and voices brave and bold. From the council halls to the city streets, talking jobs and housing, the challenges we meet. From local government to the national scene, straight talking, honest views are what we need. Straight talk with the UIM, talking news and views again and again. For the people, by the people, every day, giving communities a voice and a say. Straight talk with the UIM, real conversations from now until then. No spin, no games, no hidden lines, just honest discussion for changing times.
Yeah, a very warm welcome to each and every one of you as our listeners. You are tuned in here on Straight Talk with the UIM, only here on Joy Radio, your companion and friend in Jesus. Yes, your companion and friend in Jesus. This is Straight Talk with the UIM, exclusively here on Joy Radio, your companion and friend in Jesus. A very good evening to all of you and a welcome to our panel team. Garth, Jock, a very good evening. How are you doing?
Good, thanks, and you, Barry?
No, I'm
Good evening,
really
Barry.
well.
Happy to be back.
Absolutely, Garth. Happy to be with my two teammates on Straight Talk with the UIM. And a good evening and a welcome to Joy Radio. My name is Barry, and you are tuning here on Straight Talk with the UIM, broadcasting live every Thursday from 6:30 until 8 p.m. And tonight we have a very exciting program lined up for you as our listeners. Stay tuned in as we have a wonderful program lined up for you and also wonderful topics that we are going to talk about tonight. Garth, once again, a very good evening to you and Jock, and thank you so much for standing in the gap each and every week, both of you, and also thank you for buying out of your personal time to always be with me on air here on Joy Radio on Straight Talk with the UIM. Now, to get to our topics of discussions tonight, a pensioner from Gauteng in his 60s received, or is actually receiving, 2,400 Rand per month. Now, in my honest opinion, I mean, for somebody to survive on 2,400 Rand per month, you know, as a pensioner, I don't want to say old person because I might get into trouble if I say old person. So let me rather say a senior person receiving a grant of 2,400 Rand a month is definitely not enough. Now, I actually came across this wonderful, interesting article, you know, talking about this person, this senior person receiving 2,400 Rand per month. But he actually reckons and says that this is not enough to support himself and up to 5 dependents. He actually says that rising food prices means his money runs out by the 3rd week of each month, forcing him to continue looking for work despite being retired and also at a very high age. Now, he actually says that he has a diploma in administration and is willing to relocate for the right opportunity. For finding employment is actually difficult in South Africa due to the high unemployment rate. Now, Garth, this elderly person says, I mean, that it's really difficult for him to actually survive on 2,400 Rand per month. The current older person's grant or older senior's grant or pensioner's grant is enough to support our senior elderly people in South Africa who are also caring for extended family. What is your thoughts on this, Garth?
Hi, Barry. Yes, definitely no. It's an absolute no. It's not enough. We have a crisis in our country with people living below the poverty line. We have a number of other major challenges that we are all facing. And it's just putting an excessive burden on society, especially the elderly. And, the elderly feel obligated to help and to look after extended family and so on. And, the circumstances that we are all basically suffering from, or suffer, that we are bearing the brunt of bad government and of bad ideology. And I'll actually touch on this a little bit later as well, on some of the other things that we might discuss. But the big concern in our society is being the cost of living. And we just simply don't, you cannot keep pace with everything because you cannot budget, let alone survive on such a small pension, let alone support any extended family on a pension that's not adequate. So, a lot of the people who are dependent on SASSA grants, pension, the pension grant, it's just not sufficient, and they experience a number of challenges over and above just the cost of living and trying to make ends meet. They end up being preyed upon by people who, for argument's sake, sell them a funeral policy, and then they've never even been consulted, but they have a deduction off the small pension, and that's a form of fraud and abuse, that the elderly have to go through, and to sort this out is not something that just happens overnight. And then, of course, the government also does audits, and that also puts this lifeline that a lot of these government pensioners have. They can find themselves without any income, and then what do they do? So a number of our metros do have other forms of assistance, but it's still not enough, and it really creates a problem in our society, because these very same elderly people have gone and they have built the country, and they've contributed to the infrastructure that we see, despite the fact that the infrastructure has not been maintained or even improved on. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have the infrastructure that we have in our country. So there's a lot to be said about how inadequate the SASSA pension is, and that it's just not serving the purpose that I think many, in my opinion, many people deserve better. But in my research for this particular article, I came across a very, very, very interesting person who I will introduce in a minute. And she actually, in our discussion, she mentioned a number of things that I think a lot of us know about, but we don't know the detail, and we don't know or relate to the lived experience of our elderly and what they go through. And I think, without elaborating or going into any more detail, I'm going to immediately say, Soda, thank you for coming on, and thank you for accepting the invite to come and talk about this particular subject. I'm going to then ask you to introduce yourself and comment about the situation that our pensioners experience, and how there is no consistency in terms of giving them any further relief, whether it's through the indigent relief programs that some of our metros have and our municipalities and others don't, or whether it's through any other mechanisms that should be working and making life easier for our elderly. If you'd like to come on, Sarah, I'm going to mute myself. You can unmute yourself and then go ahead.
Soda, before you introduce
Thank you.
yourself from my side here at Joy Radio, a very good evening to you. And thank you so much for coming to join us here on Straight Talk with the UIM. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Barry. My name is Soda Griffin. I've been a councillor with the City of Johannesburg for 2 terms. I'm very well clued in with the acts and the bylaws and the policies, which has been contravened on a continuous basis. Yes, there is an act called the Elder Persons Act. And unfortunately, well, they're not looking at it as seniors. It is basically that.
Yeah.
It has been totally ignored by government, as all other acts are. You see, the Prescription Debt Act 68 of 1969, it's been contravened by the City of Johannesburg for years and years and years.
Absolutely.
And therefore we are finding that the elderly people are being put into a major mess of 71.9 billion rand, which is irrecoverable debt. Yet we find our senior citizens are being forced to make acknowledgement of debt on old debt. And these are the things that we as South Africans Saving South Africa, which is my NPO, we are fighting against that, because yes, 2,400 is actually a very measly amount to give to our elders. Over the years, to give somebody 20 rand coming up every year with a 20 rand when a loaf of bread is more than that, even a liter of milk is more than that. But that is neither here nor there. When we're looking at the National Treasury and the funds that are being released for our senior citizens, I can guarantee you that Johannesburg has been either pocketing the money, or they've taken that money and used it for other issues which is not concerning our elderly. And yes, the elderly are the pioneers of the country. That much I can guarantee you. Because if they did not fight, then there would not have been what we call freedom. Freedom from one prison to another. We elders have got to now stand by and see how the country is being put into this terrific mess. For me to find an elderly person, even today, I've had 8 people, elderly people, senior citizens, who are complaining. A bill of 34,000 rand on a man that had a stroke a few months ago, on a 30-day period, 34,000 rand, and they do not want to remove it from his account. The reluctance of the government to basically our local government. And I love the idea that Salga and Kokta and the parliamentary committee are now coming up with questions. Yes, I have made a noise. I'll continue making a noise for our elders. And I'm going to make sure that government is going to follow whatever mechanisms and acts has been put in place for our elders. And it's not just our elders. There are many other people. And why I feel the country should be holding people in an unemployment rate. That is why we have a downslide in this country. Our elders built the foundations only for these people to break it down. And I'm sure that with your political party, I feel that we can build up this country again. The elders need to leave a legacy for our children, our grandchildren, and the generations to come. That's the only way I can express my frustration with this government, because I'm not the only senior. I'm 69, but I feel that there are people that are more in a vulnerable state, and government is pressing down on them.
Absolutely.
They are pressing them. Yes, they are pushing them into corners. And yet, if it was not for these seniors, I mean, even if you're looking at 1994 up to now, if we're looking at our seniors and they were in their 40s at that time, they're in their 70s now. And these were the people who stood together for this country to be freed. So I feel that there's no appreciation coming from government. It's a humiliating thing to give a pensioner, I would say a SASSA recipient, to give them 2,400. Is that worth even for the foundation that was built?
Absolutely not.
Infrastructure.
Absolutely not.
Barry,
Sarah.
yeah, Barry, I can come back to in 1982 was the last infrastructure that was built. And then in 2000, because every 25 years there was an upgrade on infrastructure, which was absolutely ignored until 2007. And that is when load shedding started. Because remember, the infrastructure was now going back and it was not fixed up. So here we're sitting and we get, and I mean, for government to pat themselves on the back to say, oh, we haven't done load shedding. They haven't done the fixing of the infrastructure as well. Because every time we have to look on as seniors, we now see temporary fixing. And you know, to think that we put our minds and hearts together to make sure that this country is built solidly. So yes, our senior citizens right now, I've got a senior citizen who's sitting with an account of 67 million rand in Ennerdale, and it's a residential property. And the city refuses to fix that account. So you see, we are sitting with senior citizens who's got the their water and lights accounts sitting way above the
Yeah.
value of their property.
So I just want to quickly ask you a question. You know, that now that we are on that topic, I'm going to give you about 2
Sure.
minutes. But what
No problem.
more should government, you know, in your personal opinion, do? What do you actually think should government do more? You know, and the private sector, what should they do more to create employment opportunities for all the South Africans, you know, or for senior South Africans who still want or needs work? What do you think that the government and the private sector should do?
I honestly feel, to be quite honest with you, I honestly feel that we need a change in government because the mindset will be changed completely. If our senior citizens are still capable, like myself, who feels that we can still move into the working field, yes, we might not be able to do what we did and picked up bricks and stones at the age of 15 or 16, but we can still, with all the expertise that we have what we've actually brought to the table, we can teach the young. I believe that the youth need to be taught. They need to be trained. They cannot sit and finish their schooling and expect a corporate job. That ladder is going to fall. It's becoming too heavy. So we need people on the ground. We need people to do a lot of things in fixing. And that would be the youth whom I would gladly teach. I'm actually in the process of getting my organization where we're going to have youth training and skills training and then cross the divide between the youth and the senior citizens.
Yeah.
Because we're sitting with major ideas and skills that we can train the young people. Then we've got the gap between the youth and the senior citizen, between the ages of 35 and let's say 59 or 60, because those are the people who are sitting with a lot of experience, work experience, but they are out of the work field. So we need to train, and we need to take these people and train our young people also, and the communication between the youth and the elderly is very important. It's
Absolutely,
very
yeah.
important.
Yeah, absolutely. So I completely agree with you. And I want to say thank you once again for joining us tonight here on Straight Talk with the UIM. You are more than welcome, you know, to stay on with the rest of the show. And if you have a thought that you want to share with us, you are more than welcome to do so. I really appreciate your input, and I definitely will invite you more often on the show as a senior citizen to come and talk with us. But thank you so much again tonight for joining us.
Thank you very much, Barry, and everybody else. I do appreciate it. Yes, there are many issues that we can bring to your talk show.
Yeah.
It's very important. I'm going to ask yourself, Barry, when we speak again, we're going to talk on our vulnerable, our blind society of the blind. We are going to talk about the orphanages which are being sidelined. We are going to
Yeah.
look at the frailty centers, which is very important. But I do thank you, and I thank everybody else that listened to me. And I do hope that we can make a stance, and I'm sure that the UIM can change the dynamics of this government. And whatever we can do as an NPO, please feel free to call us. I know I've got all the acts and things at my fingertips, and if we don't, we learn from each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jana, I think what I'll do, I'll definitely, I'll discuss this thing with Garth. But next week we
Yeah.
have a wonderful lineup of a show that we have planned, where our local ward councillors,
Yeah.
working in Germiston and in Ekurhuleni,
Yeah.
also our chair lady, Crystal, will definitely be on the show
Yes.
next week, and they are going to actually come and speak about what the UIM is doing in Germiston. But I think it would be amazing, to have you also on the show next week, so that you can come and tell us a bit more. What are you doing under the UIM as a senior citizen?
Thank you so much.
Thank
Yes,
you so
Barry.
much, Soda.
Thank you for the invite. I definitely will
pleasure.
come on next week.
Thank
You
you.
know, every week I've got something different to share.
Absolutely. But thank you so much,
Thank you
Soda.
very
Thank you,
much.
Soda.
God bless you.
Thank you. Thanks, God.
God
Thanks,
bless
thanks
you.
a lot.
You're an absolute
God bless
treasure,
you too.
a living
Thank you.
legend.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Now, Jock, I mean, in this week, Colin actually was the one who shared this post with me on WhatsApp. Now, it's a Facebook post that I actually went to go and read through. Now, this post criticizes the Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture, Mr. Gayton McKenzie, and questions his leadership and priorities. Main points actually in this post was, the post claims that government email systems were used to give away actually 140 free Springbok versus Wales tickets, arguing public resources should instead be focused on schools, sport development, and supporting artists. Another point is 31 million rand in travelling spending. It alleges that 31 million rand was spent on overseas trips without enough detailed financial reporting on accountability. Another point is the post questions the handling of money raised at a 2022 gala event and asks why efforts were reportedly made to stop an investigation. And then also a very sad thing, we actually spoke about it last week, is the name change of Graafrein, which is actually 240 years old. And I see that they are actually on the verge of putting the name change through. But it also criticized the approval of a proposed name change, arguing that historical and cultural heritage should be protected and not used for political purposes or gain. And then also the Jocelyn Trust says the post claims promises were made to establish a trust in memory of missing 6-year-old Jocelyn, but says little progress has been made while other initiatives received attention. And then lastly, the last 2 points that I've also picked up in this post on Facebook, it refers to Mackenzie's previous conviction, saying that while people deserve second chances, public leaders should still be held accountable for their actions. And then lastly, Minister Gayton McKenzie says that Bokkie Week is actually, described as racist, arguing it is a privately funded cultural event. Now, the author of this Facebook post actually believes that Gayton McKenzie should focus more on accountability, responsible use of public funds, and delivering on commitments rather than publicity and political issues. Now, Jock, these are serious allegations about accountability, spending, and leadership. Which one of these following concerns that I've just mentioned do you believe deserves the most urgent attention, and why?
Barry, I would go with the 31 million that he spent on the Soccer World Cup. I mean, he complained to send that Mama Joy to the World Cup, but he and his entourage, I mean, they take the best flights that there is, stayed in the best hotels. I'm pretty sure they had the best food money can buy. I mean, why did he need to take so many people with him in the first place? What did he go do there? He said they went on a fact-finding mission. Facts for what? Because there's no way South Africa will host another World Cup, soccer World Cup. No ways. Sorry, I just want to move this side. There's a bit of noise here.
No problem.
So yeah, and the Jocelyn thing as well. I mean, how inhumane can you be to use such a sad thing for political gain and campaigning and whatever? Because that was his claim to fame. I mean, we can argue about it as much as we want, but if it wasn't for that Jocelyn thing that he said, no, he knows where she is, and he will take their parents or her parents and the brother to Disneyland. I mean, no, or the family or whatever. Nobody has been to Disneyland, but he can go spend money on a soccer World Cup that, yeah. I don't want to swear, but yeah. No, that guy, he's a comic on his own.
Ja, Jacques, weet jy,
But-
wat my eintlik so, ekskuus ek nie nou in die rede val, maar 'n ding wat my vanaand eintlik so dwars in die krop steek, jy weet, is dat alles wat gedoen word in Suid-Afrika, ek meen 'n simpel dingetjie soos Bokkieweek. Ek meen alles wat gedoen word moet altyd, jy weet, opgebring word dat dit rassisties is of dit is apartheid. Jy weet, en dit is wat ek net nie kan verstaan nie. Kan niks in hierdie land gedoen word sonder dat daar altyd, jy weet, rasisme moet opgebring word of apartheid moet opgebring word. Dit is wat ek net nie kan verstaan nie.
Ja, maar daai ding is ook al holrigery, die apartheid storie, want ek meen, die meeste van die mense in Suid-Afrika sal gatvol daarvoor om die woord apartheid te hoor. Ek meen, kom ons vat nou Bokkieweek. Die konstitusie is die hoogste wet in Suid-Afrika. En die konstitusie sê elke kultuur en taal en wat alles moet behou word. En dat die mense apartheid elke keer gebruik as campaigning mechanism of tool, laat ek dit so sê. Want sodra hulle apartheid, dan volg almal hulle, maar as moet mense ook nie weet wat aangaan. Ek wil amper sê ons is langer uit apartheid uit as wat ons in dit was, maar in elk geval.
Ja, nee,
So, hulle
absoluut.
moet regtig dit moet regtig nou tot 'n eind kom en dit is nou al 'n afgesaagde storie apartheid.
Ja, nee, ek sê ons ou Cyril Kapkyker Ramaphosa gebruik altyd, jy weet, die flou verskoning destyds toe die, of nou so rukkie terug toe die water snaaks geproe het, toe is dit apartheid se skuld, en toe kom hy weer met die storie, ja, dat die apartheid regering het hierdie land, jy weet, vir hulle gelos, wat glad nie gefunksioneer is nie, wat vir my in die eerste plek 'n klomp nonsens is 'n leuen. Hierdie land was vir die ANC gegee, hy het gefunksioneer, alles het gewerk, alles was perfek, maar nou ja, is mos basika maar altyd die tutti frutti storie wat hulle gebruik om altyd al hulle foute
Dis al hoe hulle
op te cover.
Ja, is al hoe hulle stemme ook kry. Dis die enigste manier hoe hulle kan stemme kry en gaan kry. Hulle gaan dit nie op 'n ander manier kry.
Verseker
En
nie.
dan, soos jy sê, die land het 100% gewerk. Ek meen, ons was die grootste goudprodusent of produserende land in die wêreld. Waar is ons nou? Al ons myne is toegemaak. Dis onwettige myners wat nou goud uithaal. Nee, dit is rarig. Daai mense moet 'n bietjie bykom.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can absolutely agree with you. But Jock, thank you so much for joining us once again on the show tonight. And I saw that Jock Tolyard actually posted a message on the group that he will be on the show tonight, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm sure he will join us a little bit later. Mevrou van
No, he
Sail.
said next week.
Oh, next week. Okay, no problem. That's fine. I just want to say to our listeners, please do excuse the president of the UIM tonight. He unfortunately fell ill. He is not ready and also not capable of being on the show tonight, but we do excuse him, and hopefully, definitely next week, he will be with us and he will be recovered and strong and healthy. Mevrou van Sail, goeienaand. Hoe gaan dit met jou?
Goeienaand, hoe gaan dit?
Nee, wat lekker en jy?
Nee, wat ek kan nie kla nie. Ek's 'n bietjie geskwee gou met my taksman.
Jou taksman. Jy met 'n
Ja,
baseballbat
ek
oor die
moet
kop
in-
geslaan of wat?
Nee, ek wou graag, maar jy weet ons almal moet maar binne die wette bly en ons due diligence doen vir tax.
Ja, nee, ek stem. Dit is maar altyd 'n kopseer, die tax tyd. It's always a problem and a headache when it comes to tax time.
Yes, absolutely. But it's done quickly.
I'm happy to hear that for you. Hopefully you'll get something out, eh?
Ek hoop so.
Otherwise you should join Outsurance, because with Outsurance you always get something out, eh?
Even if it's $500.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Clara, a very interesting topic that I picked up, during this week's preparation. And this is actually interesting. It's actually in the Mfuleni local municipality, where a former fleet manager at the Mfuleni local municipality has been arrested over alleged tender irregularities involving the purchase of municipal vehicles. Now the municipality reportedly paid 16 million rand for 18 vehicles. But only 7 vehicles were delivered, despite the supplier allegedly receiving full payment. Now, what actually boggles my mind is, where do you pay 16 million rand for 18 vehicles? And I mean, the police say the investigation is ongoing and more arrests could follow. The Democratic Alliance, however, welcomed the arrest, saying it is a step towards holding those responsible for corruption accountable. The case actually adds to Mfuleni's long-standing financial and service delivery problems. The municipality owes, listen to this amount. Panel, listen to this amount. The municipality owes about 9.7 billion rand to Eskom and Rand Water, and continues to face frequent power outages, water interruptions, and refuse collection challenges. 9.7 billion rand owed to Eskom and also to Rand Water. That is a massive amount that is being owed to Eskom and also to Rand Water. Carry on. What is your reaction to the allegations that Mfuleni paid over 16 million rand for 18 vehicles but received only 7? My personal opinion, I think it's ridiculous. It's nonsense that people or the municipality paid so much money for 18 vehicles but only received 7. Where do you think is the other vehicles, Clara?
Man, my vraag is, watse voertuie het hulle gekoop?
Ja, wil ek ook
Vir
weet.
daai Want dit is baie kommerwekkend. Ek as 'n verkoopsdame wat uit 'n karbedryf uitgekom het, kan ek vir jou sê, hulle moes darem maar baie lae in die voertuie gekoop het, of iemand het iewers sy geld in die sak gesteek. Dis erg kommerwekkend. Indien die bewyse daar is en hulle kan die ernstige misbruik van openbare geld en groot voorraad teenoor die inwoners van Mfuleni wat op die munisipaliteit staat maak vir basiese dienslewering, bewys, dis korrupsie op sy beste. Elke rand wat aangewend kan word om die infrastruktuur te herstel, soos die elektrisiteit, water, pype en die dienslewering te verbeter, soos om voertuie aan te koop wat kan vullisverwydering doen, sal die gemeenskap hulle mos nou natuurlik ondersteun. Die inhegtenisname is egter 'n stap in die regte rigting. Maar dit is baie belangrik om hierdie ondersoek ten volle aan die gang te kry, dat almal wat skuldig is aan die pen ry. Dit is vir my mind-boggling. Ek kan nie vir julle sê, ek sien dit daagliks in vele munisipaliteite, hoe geld verduister word en dan sê hulle het iets daarmee aangekoop wat nie daar is nie. Ek voel natuurlik munisipaliteite moet beter en sterker finansiële beheermaatreëls hê en toesig instel. Die deursigtigheid daarvan is baie belangrik. En om 'n tender toe te staan en die volle bedrag te betaal, en dan sit jy met 7, 8 voertuie? Wanneer lewer hulle die res af? Dit is vir my baie erg kommerwekkend. Daar moet duidelik opgetree word teen sulke korrupsie en vinnige dissipline toegepas word. En natuurlik weet ons ook, vletjieblassers, dit gaan nie altyd goed met hulle nie, so daar moet beskerming vir hulle ook wees.
Ja nee, ek stem saam met jou Clara, dit is regtig, dit gaan my verstand te bowe hoe hulle 18 miljoen rand betaal vir munisipaliteit voertuie, jy weet maar hulle ontvang net 7. Regtig, ek meen, as jy dit gaan uitwerk, ek meen, jy kan deesdae en jy weet 'n behoorlike karretjie optel vir 'n goeie prys van R45,000 of R50,000.
Ja, jy weet Barry, die belangrikheid van die saak is ons moet kyk, hulle het voertuie soos bakkies nodig,
Ja.
wat hulle kabels en hulle tools en ek meng nou vreeslik my taal, maar die Engels is nou nie so goed vir my nie, weet. Ek praat om goed van dat ek 2 times twice was. Maar daar is vullisverwyderingstrokke,
Ja.
daar's back actors. Ons weet 'n vullisverwydering trok en 'n back actor en 'n cherry picker. Dis goed wat nogal redelik pricey is.
Ja,
So
ja.
ons gaan weet dit gaan duur wees, maar ek wil graag weet wat se tipe voertuie het hulle gekoop? Het hulle back actors gekoop? Het hulle cherry pickers gekoop? Het hulle 'n haddiesakkel gekoop of het hulle net 'n klomp vloot bakkies gekoop vir hulle mense om mee rond te ry? Want dit is darem belaglik hoor. En ek sal as ek in daai posisie was, sal ek eers die geld betaal wanneer die aflewering van al die voertuie plaasgevind het. Hoe staan jy 'n tender toe? Jy betaal hulle vooraf die geld, maar jy sit met enorme bedrae skuld by Eskom en Randwater, soos elke munisipaliteit reg oor hierdie land, en jy betaal net geld uit left, right en center. En wie moet betaal? Die mense op grond, die mense wat die taks betaal, die mense wat hulle dienslewering betaal, die mense wat hulle water en ligte en vullisverwydering betaal.
Ja, nee, Clara,
Dit is onaanvaarbaar.
Nee, absoluut. Ek stem met jou heeltemal saam. Dit is onaanvaarbaar. Jy weet, ons belastingbetalers se geld word net, jy weet, links en regs, jy weet, left and right word hierdie geld spandeer op goed en daar word net nie mense verantwoordelik gehou vir hulle dade nie. Now, Clara, just to get to the last question of this topic. What measures do you believe municipalities should put in place to prevent corruption and ensure taxpayers' money is properly spent? Wat se tipe maatreëls dink jy moet daar in plek gesit word deur die munisipaliteite om te verhoed, jy weet, dat korrupsie plaasvind en dat hulle ook verseker dat belastingbetalers se geld, jy weet, behoorlik bestee word?
Barry, dit kom nou neer op die finansiële bestuurder, die hoof van 'n munisipaliteit. Hy is veronderstel om behoorlike oorsig te kan doen. So die ouditeur-generaal moet intree hierso en regtig ondersoek instel of hierdie mense regtig bevoeg is om hulle werk te doen. En dan moet daar nie net tenders left, right en center uitgedeel word nie. So ek dink regtig, ek wonder partykeer, jy weet as jy jou boeke indien, jy kan maklik op papier dit laat klop, maar as jy regtig gaan ondersoek instel, dan gaan jy sien die ongeruimthede wat daarmee gepaard gaan. So die ouditeur van bo af nasionaal met die ouditeur-generaal 'n behoorlike ondersoek inlas en te kyk of hierdie mense bevoeg is om hulle werk te doen. Daai mense moet se meer uit hulle pos uit gelig word en mense wat die know-how het, moet aangestel word en die gelde moet dan oorbetaal word soos dit moet. Al moet jy nou iemand kry wat polisieman speel tot almal comply, maar compliance is hierso.
Ja nee, ek stem saam met jou, Clara. Hierdie mense moet definitief, jy weet, verantwoordelik gehou word, jy weet, van hoe ons belastingbetalers se geld spandeer word. Maar baie dankie dat jy ook van... Ekskuus, ek kan maar praat.
Ekskuus Barry, ek wil net 'n laaste ding sê. Ek vat nou, as jy kyk na ons infrastruktuur wat uitmekaar uitval, ek meen is 32 jaar wat hierdie goed nie opgegradeer is nie. So die gelde wat inkom, het julle al julle water en ligte rekening gekry? Het julle die verhogings daarop gesien? Iewers is daar besig om met ons gemors te word, almal hier op grondvlak. En dit is 'n ding wat definitief in die bek geruk moet word.
Ja, nee, ek stem saam met jou, Clara. Jy weet, daar's 'n Engelse spreekwoord wat sê whatever happens in the darkness will always come to light. So ek dink definitief jy weet
Amen.
al hierdie snaakse dinge wat gebeur en al hierdie korrupsie wat gepleeg word, ons sien al hoe meer hoe al hierdie munisipale bestuurders en jy weet al hulle mense wat betrokke is, jy weet wat 'n groot hap uit hierdie koek uitvat, word definitief jy weet gearresteer en al hoe meer mense sien ek gaan begin they are definitely going to be brought to task for the stuff that they are doing.
Absolutely.
Ja nee.
Thank you, Barry.
Clara, baie dankie vir jou insettinge vanaand en jy's meer as welkom om ook saam met ons te gesels op die ander topics wat ons oor gaan gesels. Moet asseblief nêrens heen gaan nie. Ons het nog vanaand 'n lekker groepsbespreking op die menu vanaand. Jonathan, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. How are you doing?
Hello, vanuit julle. Good evening.
That's definitely always a privilege for us to have you on with us tonight. Now, I'm actually going to go ask you and Garth, to talk a bit to us about the opinion piece that argues that the ANC is making a political parallaxis error. And now this error is actually a term borrowed from astronomy that refers to seeing something incorrectly because of the position from which you are viewing it. Now, the author actually suggests the ANC or misreading South Africa's political reality and public opinion. Now, the article's main points are the ANC is accused of believing that many of its current political challenges are caused by outside forces or its opponents rather than acknowledging its own role in losing public trust. Second point is it argues that many South Africans are more concerned about everyday issues. But the second point, nevertheless, on this topic is it argues that many South Africans are more concerned about everyday issues like unemployment, crime, corruption, poor service delivery, and the cost of living than political rhetoric. The third point is the article suggests the ANC needs to focus on rebuilding credibility through better governance and accountability instead of blaming others for its declining support. And lastly, it also says it concludes that unless the party changes how it views the country's challenges, it risks becoming even more disconnected from voters. Now, Jonathan, as mentioned to Jacques tonight, I mean, the ANC loves to use the story of blaming apartheid always, for its failures. But I mean, just to take a simple example tonight, look at our youth unemployment rate. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, you are the youth leader of the United Independent Movement. I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of young people in this country sitting without a job. Now, do you agree with the term that the ANC is making a political parallax? Or is the ANC misreading what matters most to South African voters? Or do you think that there are other factors driving the party's declining support? Because I can definitely tell you tonight, in my honest opinion, I think that you as a young person, myself as a young person, and even most of our young people in this country is definitely losing faith in a government who is more talk than in what they actually do. But do you think that there are other factors that are leading to the party's declining support from its voters?
Yes, there's actually many though. But the ANC's biggest political blind spot is, voters still believing and voting based on history. And, like today, people vote based on, daily reality, such as jobs, like you mentioned, the unemployment. the safety. Are we safe in the country? As well as even the poor service delivery. And there's no accountability. As you mentioned, with the 16 million, who's going to be accountable? How long are we going to wait until people, take responsibility for their actions?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Jonathan. The ANC definitely also needs to be kept accountable for all of the havoc they are actually causing in this country. Garth, I'm going to give you 2 minutes. What do you think is the biggest cause of the ANC's voters actually losing faith in them?
Barry, yes. So we are sitting 32 plus years later, and we still are stuck in with a government that is acting more as a liberation struggle party than a government that should be functioning. So they prefer to keep everybody dumbed down by giving, by not providing quality education, not creating employment, etc. And then they want to come and push political narrative onto us as a population, as South African citizens, and continually get us fighting with each other and worked up over racial issues, where the reality on the ground for the majority of South Africans, irrespective of which race group you belong to or which culture you belong to, we are all going through incredible hardship, where the cost of living has gone through the roof, where you can't budget from one month to the other because you just don't know how many extra hundreds of rands you're going to have to pay, that you just don't know. Are you going to be, you're going to be sitting with an extra 1,000 or 2,000 rand a month that just vanishes to property rate taxes, for argument's sake, or because electricity has gone up, or for service fees that have gone up because suddenly people are looking at their accounts this month and you've got a doubling of your sewage, the services that are offered for sewage and water as well, going up horribly expensive. And yet we all know that these things are in decay because it hasn't been looked after, it hasn't been serviced, it hasn't been repaired, it hasn't been planned for future upgrades. So all of us are sitting with this problem. And there's a very interesting thing that came up in the week that I was looking at as well, which basically spoke about how for the last 10 years, the last decade, surveys have been done by very reputable organizations where they consistently show that South African priorities are jobs, crime, corruption, education, and economic growth. Now, when we start to hear, we saw what happened with March and March, and we saw the sort of ugly instances of racism and so on. Racism is nothing. It's at the bottom of people who live in our country on a day-to-day basis and face real struggles, service delivery struggles, and cost of living struggles. Racism is something that we just shouldn't even be looking at as a major thing, and yet we are being divided by a political party that is stuck in liberation type thinking. So, we clearly have an ANC that absolutely has lost touch with reality, has lost touch with the lived experience of all of our voters. And people are starting to see through this, and they are starting to see that a lot of this thinking and this way of blaming everybody else is actually a lot of nonsense. The voters are actually seeing that they must start to vote for parties who are going to focus on delivery of service, who are going to focus on accountable government, transparent government, efficient government, government that is not going to continually steal and create mafia side industries to fleece the taxpayer. So, this really again illustrates just how badly we are being treated by a government that should, for all intents and purposes, be there to uplift the citizens and provide a better quality of life for everybody. It's very, very, very sad. We really, as citizens of this country, we seriously need to think about who we're going to vote for and what are they going to do to make things better for all of us in South Africa.
Yeah, Garth, thank you so much. I think it's time for a breather. Let's take a break and listen to this beautiful song of Ruan Josh and Juanita du Plessis, Even If. Now, just to mention before I play the song, we were actually told last week that we should start playing more of Juanita du Plessis' gospel music here on Joy Radio. Colin actually told me, Barry, I want to hear a bit more of Juanita du Plessis' gospel music on Joy Radio. So let's listen to this beautiful song of Ruan Josh and Juanita du Plessis, and the song's name is Even If. You are tuned in here on Straight Talk with the URM, only on Joy Radio, your companion and friend in Jesus. You can send your WhatsApp messages to 061 803 0981. Here is Juanita du Plessis and Ruan Josh with this beautiful song, Even If.
They say sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some. But right now I'm losing back. Stood on the stage night after night, reminding the broken it'll be alright. Right now, oh, right now I just can't. It's easy to sing when there's nothing to bring me down. But what will I say when I'm held to the flame like I am right now? I know you're able and I know you can save through the fire with your mighty hand. But even if you don't, my hope is you alone. They say it only takes a little faith to move a mountain. Good thing, a little faith is all I have right now. God, when you choose to leave mountains unmovable, oh, give me the strength to be able to sing. It is well with my soul. I know you're able and I know you can save through the fire with your mighty hand. But even if you don't, my hope is you alone. I know the sorrow and I know the hurt will all go away if you just say the word. But even if you don't, my hope is you alone. You've been faithful, you've been good all my days. Jesus, I will cling to you, come what may, 'cause I know you're able, and I know you can. I know you're able, and I know you can. Save through the fire
Yeah, you are tuning here on Joy Radio, your companion and friend in Jesus. What a beautiful song of Juanita du Plessis and Ruan Josh with that beautiful song, Even If. Now, om julle vanaand so 'n bietjie jaloers te maak, to make our panel team a bit jealous, last week, Saturday, both me and my wife had the wonderful opportunity to actually go and watch Juanita du Plessis and Franja du Plessis live by Braai Fiesta in Boksburg. Yes, we actually had the opportunity to go and listen to Juanita du Plessis and Franja du Plessis live at Braai Fiesta, a wonderful show, two wonderful women entertainers here in South Africa. And Juanita du Plessis is actually also a very big gospel songwriter. I absolutely love her music. They are really so passionate about what they are doing. But you are tuning here on Straight Talk with the UIM, only here on Joy Radio, your companion and friend in Jesus. Just to mention to our listeners, you can tune in tomorrow afternoon from 1:30 until 3 o'clock for Straight Talk with the UIM, only here on Joy Radio, your companion and friend in Jesus. Yes, Joy Radio is your companion and friend in Jesus. Now, the Democratic Alliance has lodged a complaint with the South African Human Rights Commission, saying the city of Ekurhuleni has failed to deal with its growing housing crisis. Now, there is a major housing backlog. More than 283,000 households are waiting for housing in Ekurhuleni. Several developments, including Hospital View, Esalen Mega Housing Project, Winnie Mandela Extension 25, Mackenzieville Extension 2, and Vosloorus Extension 9 have experienced years of delays or stalled construction. Although the city has allocated funding for human settlements and says it has delivered only nearly 3,000 houses and almost 2,900 serviced stands since April 2024, the DA argues this is far below what is needed to reduce the backlog. Now, after receiving no response to its request for provincial intervention, the DA has turned to the South African Human Rights Commission, asking it to investigate and recommend measures to improve accountability, transparency, and housing delivery. Now, panel team, my question tonight is, and I want to start off with Garth. Garth, there is a backlog of 283,000 households currently in this country. Now, I mean, this is a significant challenge for people, who are actually living below the poverty line. And my question is tonight, who should be held accountable for the situation? Should it be the municipality, the provincial government, or should both be kept accountable for this? Garth, I'm going to give you about 2 to 5 minutes to, share with us of who do you think should be kept accountable with this massive crisis that we are sitting with.
Thank you, Barry. Yes, I personally believe it's both, and because the one goes hand in hand with the other. You must remember that national government decides what will be a priority for the government and where the spending will go, and that then gets allocated to the provinces, and then your local government then picks up from there. But everyone is equally to blame, and I believe that we this particular specific mention of Mackenzieville, I have in the past actually looked at some very interesting information about the cases that have gone to the High Court and then come back because our government of the past 30 plus years has just not delivered. They've promised, but they have not delivered. And where they have delivered, they have done so on the basis of a state capture. They've done cadre deployment, created mafia organizations within industries that have completely eroded the ability to actually deliver on any form of promises that this government has made in the past. And no matter what they say, people have lost faith, they've lost trust in the government to provide or to even make a difference to ordinary people's lives. So in the past, in this particular area, the town planning has not been up to scratch. The actual laying down of infrastructure that would normally go with this type of thing, where you would have stormwater pipes, you would have proper sanitation, you would have electricity that actually functions and works. These things are just not provided, and where you have further complications because of urbanization, and you have people coming to squat, and then people arguing because, again, government seems to think that it can prioritize these promises that have been made to people in terms of our constitution. It seems to think that it can selectively keep the promises for some people and not for others. So, of course, you're going to have conflict. You're going to have people getting upset, people who've lived in areas for a generation or two, who then see land being developed and then being handed over to people who don't even live in the same area or who've got no connection from a generational perspective. So it causes major upheaval. And, again, had we had a government that could keep its promises, could be efficient and effective, be transparent, be accountable, we wouldn't be sitting with these problems. But again, I urge everybody to seriously think about who they're going to vote for this time around, and to then make an informed decision, not an emotional decision when it comes to voting for people that can look after you the way you deserve to be looked after, and where the councillors can actually be there to be of service to you, not to rob you and not to abuse you and not to take advantage of the situation.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Garth. I cannot agree with you more. It's actually, so concerning that, the ANC has been in control of the country since 1994, and there's a lot of housing projects, that actually is being stalled or remain incomplete. And, I just don't know, it's really concerning, that since 1994, the ANC has just not built enough houses, for our people in this country. Now, Jock, over to you. With billions allocated to housing over the years, why do you think is many South Africans still waiting for adequate and reliable housing?
Oh, that's easy. Corruption and tenders. I honestly believe if you apply for a tender, you should have at least some money in your account or whatever to prove that you can do the work. You must use your money. Set timelines and things for them. If you finish in X amount of time, you get maybe a small bonus or whatever. But corruption and things is the biggest thing. They pay the people the money and they disappear with the money. Then they have to put out another tender to come fix that guy's problems or to finish the building. That guy disappears and it just snowballs. Money gets more and more and more, and no houses get built.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Jock. I really agree with you. Corruption and you know, maybe giving a tender to my cousin or to my aunt or to my uncle is always a problem, you know, in this country. And we've seen many times where, you know, municipalities of different provinces were actually being caught out, or members or managers of municipalities being caught out, you know, where they gave a tender to their uncle or aunt, you know, where actually partially of the job, you know, were actually completed. Now, my question is tonight to you and Garth. Do you think that the South African Human Rights Commission should play an active role in holding municipalities accountable for housing delivery? What do you think? Do you think that the South African Human Rights Commission should play a more active role? Should they be more involved in keeping, you know, these different municipalities accountable for not delivering houses?
I would definitely say yes, but then they must also look at it with an open mind and not be biased. Because some people, I mean, everywhere in South Africa, from the courts to the Human Rights Commission, everywhere people is getting bought. For the right amount, they can make a certain choice. So again, it comes down to corruption and things. As soon as that's sorted out, yes, definitely they must be more involved.
Absolutely. Now, Garth, my question to you is, you know, looking ahead of the local government elections, should housing delivery be one of the main issues voters consider when deciding, you know, who to support or who to vote for? Do you think that this should actually be a factor, you know, or one of the main issues that voters should actually consider before voting for a specific political party?
Yes, Barry, most definitely. You know, this is something that, as I say, the high courts have been in back and forth making, you know, taking government on for not delivering. They've taken not just national government, local government on for not delivering. And we sit with a crisis because we sit with major problems when it comes to infrastructure. And we sit with major problems when it comes to providing and literally delivering and making good on the promises that our constitution gives to each and every citizen. So you must remember, when we do not have housing, we do not have proper schooling. We do, you know, because all the town planning goes into this type of thing where you suddenly have to create housing for people. You have to then also take into account those people need services. They need sewage, they need electricity, they need roads, they need hospitals, they need policing, they need to feel safe and secure. They need to have local government that enforces bylaws which are there to protect everybody and to get things to function properly. So all of this again becomes a thing of ensuring that what you as a citizen do when you work and pay tax, or when you have money that you spend, and all forms of taxes. It's not just people who earn a lot of money that pay taxes. We all pay tax. It's just the levels and degrees of being taxed that fluctuate between the more affluent, or not affluent, but the more privileged versus the less privileged. But we all end up paying taxes. So we deserve to be treated with the necessary respect, and we deserve to be treated with and be given the dignity of having things like decent infrastructure. And our government has made all these promises; it just hasn't stuck to them. Instead, it has lumped us with dysfunctional government, with dishonest government, with corruption and fraud. and inefficiency and overspending and like we heard earlier tonight, you've got millions being spent on vehicles when less than half of those vehicles have actually physically been delivered, but they've been paid for. All of this points out to massive fraud and corruption, which we just cannot put up with it anymore. It's just been too long. And people need to actually go and change the way that they vote, and they need to demand the things that they are entitled to. Getting back to that survey that I mentioned earlier, the ranking of the priorities that people have over the last decade have consistently said to anyone who'll listen, really, they've consistently indicated where those priorities lie. And I'll give you an indication. In that decade, the priorities, the highest priority that people have said that they want and expect from local government, number one, at 23%, jobs and unemployment. Number two, illegal immigration is an issue, because people want housing that doesn't go to people who are not entitled to it, especially when you're living in a country and paying taxes for things that have been promised. Third issue, corruption. Fourth issue, water provision. Then it's followed by crime and insecurity, then drugs and drug abuse, then roads, and then housing, electricity, education, healthcare, rising prices, and land reform. Climate change and public transport are almost negligible. And then, as I say, close to the bottom is racism, which, if you listen to some of the parties that are out there, especially the splinter groups that have broken away from the EFF, not the EFF, the ANC, they will actually say to you that racism is the top priority. Not. People want all of those things that I've just mentioned. And guess what? They all tie in with what the Constitution says. We should be getting service delivery. We should be getting houses. We should be getting access to decent healthcare. We should be getting decent policing, etc., etc., etc. So, to answer your question, yes, housing is one of those top priorities that people should be thinking about when they vote in the upcoming elections. And they must remember who has been in government and has not delivered.
Yeah, Garth, absolutely. Thank you so much. Now, Jock, to give you the last 5 or 10 minutes that we have on the show, I saw that President Jacques Taljaard has posted a beautiful post on the group, and I saw actually that it was mentioned that you are going to just tell us, in short, you're going to actually advise us about the main topic tonight. So I'm going to give you the last 10 minutes up until 5 to 8. You have about 10 minutes to talk about the main topic tonight, and then we'll be closing off with the show tonight.
Okay. I just want to go there quickly.
No problem.
Before I get to the main topic, I just need to mention the party memberships as well. So there's 4 different types of memberships in the UIM. There's a free membership, there's a contributing or paid membership, there's a legal retainer membership, and there's a premium legal retainer membership. So eligible members can access an inclusive legal retainer benefit through the UIM's collaboration with a trusted law firm, providing access to professional legal services and assistance. So if the listeners or people out there want more information on the types of memberships, they can contact us on WhatsApp on 067 883 8911. So that's for the memberships. I just want to go see that main topic quickly, if you don't mind.
No problem. It's fine.
I don't actually see the main topic. It just said that Jacques would talk about it, but he did mention that we should talk about the memberships. So yes, there is different, like I said, different memberships, different options. And yeah, feel free to contact us if you want to know more about it, because each membership entitles something else. I think that's about that. And I don't know if Garth wants to add to the membership thing.
Yeah, Garth, you're more than welcome to add something if you want to, Garth. Thank you.
All right. Yes. So, one of the things that our president did indicate was that there is a bit of an add-on to the memberships. And I think people need to realize that our memberships are there for a reason. As a political party, we are 100% self-funded. We do not get funding from government in any form or any way. And membership basically helps us cover the costs to do many of the things that we do in the communities that we serve. So I'll give you an example, and also obviously for us to function as a party and register for elections in order to to contest elections and then put forward people as ward councillors and PR councillors. All of these things do indeed cost money that we somehow have to come up with, and that's where your membership plays a vital role in the actual functioning of the UIM as a political party. It helps us cover the costs to go and register our councillors and PR councillors, to pay for posters and to print pamphlets and hand out pamphlets, and all of these things that cost money. So this is an appeal for people to become members, especially if you feel very strongly that you identify and relate to the UIM, that the UIM represents or is able and willing to represent you and your interests and to fight for you when it comes to non-service delivery, or fight for you when it comes to the government not living up to the expectations that it has created in the very constitution of South Africa. So none of this is possible without your membership fees and without your donations to the UIM. We go and we attend rallies and we do campaigns in different areas, and all of these things mostly come out of our own pockets, but where we have your support as membership, it really helps us to cover those costs. And I think all of you would relate to the fact that it costs money to travel. So there are fuel costs, there's maintenance costs on our private vehicles, there's internet costs to just simply do what I'm doing right now, and that's actually talking to you through my phone on the radio, to be able to address the very political issues that people should be thinking about when they consider which party is best going to serve them in the upcoming elections. So this is an appeal for people to please join as members, and for our pensioners and for our students, there is a free membership in which you can join. You obviously need a break, but for anybody who's able to join as a paying member, your money is being put to very good use, and any donations that you made are also put to very, very good use. Running a political party takes money, and most of it is financed by the people who are in the UIM. However, we cannot finance everything. There is an add-on that's been put with our membership, where our partnership with a very reliable and very credible and very well lawyered outfit is basically saying to us as a political party that they are prepared to offer what most people would think of as a retainer, legal retainer membership, and there are two variations on that membership. Call it the standard plan, and then the additional plan that comes in. Not additional, but it's sort of, call it the premium plan, where you pay a little bit more and you get more in terms of retaining the services of a very reputable law firm that will give you advice and look into your legal matters and give you a good start in terms of saying where you can potentially go with whatever legal matter you are looking for. So those options, if you are interested, do exist, and you can get more information by contacting this particular law firm who's in partnership with the UIM on 067 883 8911, and they will be able to give you more information on those two options, where you literally go and have access to a legal firm on a retainer basis, and they'll be able to assist you with your legal matters.
Yeah, Garth, thank you so much, team. Thank you so much. I see our whole panel team actually disappeared. Clara did ask, or did say goodbye, but I see the rest of the team actually just disappeared. I said it's only myself and Garth and also Jog that's still on, but I've actually made a joke with Jonathan. I just said to him, no goodbye tonight, but no problem at all. Team, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Same time, same place. We will be back here on Joy Radio with Straight Talk with the UIM, if it's God's will. But I want to say to our listeners tonight also, thank you so much for joining us here on Straight Talk with the UIM. It's really always such an exciting time when we are on the show. And that brings us to another edition of Straight Talk with the UIM. It brings us to the end. And thank you so much for joining us this evening and for being part of the conversation. And this show is all about opinions. And I want to say to our listeners that your opinion matters. We hope today's discussion has given you a better understanding of the issues shaping our country and the world around us. Remember, staying informed is the first step toward making informed decisions and contributing to meaningful change. We encourage you to continue following these stories, ask questions, and stay engaged with the issues that matter most. From all of us here at Straight Talk with the UIM, thank you for your company. We look forward to welcoming you back for another insightful discussion next time. Until then, take care, stay blessed, stay under the blood of Jesus, take care of yourselves, stay safe, stay informed, and have a wonderful evening further. I'm going to play out with this beautiful song of Juanita du Plessis once again tonight. En hierdie liedjie se naam is Vlieghoog van Juanita du Plessis. May God bless you, may God keep you, may God make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. To the panel team tonight, good night. May God bless you. And may you also have a wonderful evening in Jesus' name. Amen and shalom.
Hoor as die storms van lewe is onder my. Hoor as die wolk van die verlede is agter my. Hoor as die son na die lug. Ek vlieg hoor. Die pad lê gelyk en uitgestrek. My lewe wag vir my. Reënboog vol beloftes voor, want gister is verby. Al my drome, ek gaan dit haal, want ek vlieg hoog. 'n arends vlug op
op 'n vaste koers met engel aan my sy. Die berge kan maar follow my, want ek weet ek is vry. Ek sprei my vlerke oor, want ek kan. Hoor as die storms van die lewe is onder my, hoor as die wolk van die verlede is agter my, hoor as die son na die lug. Ek vlieg oor op die wind van die Here se genade. Rondom my hou ek my oë op die windpaal, voor my hoog bo die son na die lug. Ek vlieg oor. My asem sal nie opraak nie, want sy asem is in my. Ek weet ek sal nie moeg raak nie, want sy hande dra my. As ek val, tel hy my op en sê jy kan. Niks kan my meer bang maak nie, niks sal my onderkry. Wat sal 'n mens aan my kan doen, want ek weet ek is vry. Ek sprei my vlerke oor, ek vlieg oor. Hoor as die storms van die lewe is onder my, hoor as die wolk van die verlede is agter my, hoor as die son na die lug. Ek vlieg oor op die wind van die Here se genade. Rondom my hou ek my oë op die windpaal, voor my hoog bo die son na die lug. Ek vlieg oor. Hoor as die storms van die lewe dis onder my, hoor as die wolk van die verlede dis agter my, hoor as die son na die lug.